Hey everyone, I have just got back from the Kempton Park Arms Fair and I thought I would do another unboxing. Got quite a decent reception last time. I'm going to try and do more of these. Doing second week, doing alright. Got another one. And it's a fun one. So today is Independence Day, as you know. All our Americans, happy Independence Day. All British people, Treason Day, it is what it is. Just enjoy it. But I thought today would be a fun day to show off an American sword. You don't get very many of these in the UK, and when you do, they're usually the 1840 wristbreaker or the 1860 cavalry sword. For the most part, like you would most likely see on other videos, it tends to be that when it comes to blades, the Americans didn't really use them because of the invention of firearms compared to other countries. So whilst France, Britain and Germany and Africa also had colonial interests where they were fighting largely melee-based societies or societies where firearms were valued equally as much as melee weapons. In the US, especially around this period, and especially with who they were fighting, the Americans were fighting other militaries or militias or groups that would be armed decently. They would have bayonets as their melee weapon, and they would have firearms. The sword, as always, is a defensive weapon for officers. It's just to keep them alive because their greatest weapon is their troops. And yeah, this is a nice example of an American sword. I don't usually get these in, but I saw this and I really liked it. It's, well, for one, it's been polished by the previous owner, so it's really shiny. That's quite nice. And cruciform hilts, you don't see a lot of them in military swords, and this is generally known as the 1840 militia sword for the United States. They can be a lot more decorative than this, they can be a lot plainer than this. They can often be mistaken for fraternal societies, and sometimes fraternal society swords were militia swords. Also, I've been told, I'm not the greatest expert on American swords, but I have checked with other dealers and you see it on reference websites, and I just wanted to own one, and today I took it out to Kempton to show an American customer who met me there, and he's considering this. But yeah, I thought it would be nice to show an American sword on Independence Day. And blade wise, very plain, oval section, quite thick. Hopefully you can see. There we go. So quite a broad blade. Not really what I would say is intended for use, but it is a serviceable sword. It'll do the job, especially if you are a militia officer and you would have your personal sidearm. So this one I did get more for looks than practicality, because it is just rather sweet, and I do like a nice locket on a sword. So that is the first one that came back with me from Kempton today. The second one was one that I took potentially to move it on, but I found I couldn't. I got a lot of questions about this when I did my last unboxing video, and when I've done my Instagram and Facebook posts of me setting up this wall. This was right at the top there. This is a unique sword. It is a 1796 heavy cavalry sword with a Celtic inspired hilt, as you can see there. This, however, was made in 1833, and it's a special order. It is a yeomanry sword, and it's just lovely. So it does need a bit of cleaning up. I haven't had a chance to do that, but it will be getting some gentle TLC. And now to explain the features. Scabbard, pretty standard 1796 heavy cavalry scabbard. It has its 2 rings, black, well, it's been chemically darkened to be black. It may have some patches of paint on it, but that is just what happens with antiques. They get messed with, looked after, cleaned, however you want to put it. The blade, the point, comes to an acute tip and is a spear point. You often see these on 1796s. Often people say they were sharpened to an acute tip before battle, but yeah, you do see lots of sharpened hatchet points too. It just depends. This, so reading blade, the etchings show that this was made in the reign of William IV, and it has a lancer emblem there. Hopefully that shows up. But it is a lancer emblem with DY, that stands for Decorum Yeomanry. Decorum is an area in Hertfordshire, near St Albans. And this is a double-stamped Prosser blade. Prosser being one of the premier sword makers of the Georgian through to very early Victorian period. Most famous for his Georgian swords. And on the other side, there is an inscription. So let's see which way this reads. Still getting used to this camera, so hopefully it picks up. But, just in case, it reads, Prize Sword 1 in the Decorum Troop Yeomanry, 1833. So this sword was won as a prize, hence prize sword, by the best swordsman in the Decorum Yeomanry. And they did a yearly meet, and I believe this meet was with all of the yeomanry and militia in Hertfordshire. So this is the best swordsman in an entire county who owned this sword, and that, as a sword collector, as a sword dealer, and as a fencer as well, makes me love this sword. It is incredible, and you don't see many prize swords around. Sadly, it doesn't have a name, but hopefully I can track down some information on the 1833 meet, which is available online. Well, the request was available online. I should be getting more info on it later. Then, it's all cute, sexy, curvy things. Hopefully I don't get pulled for saying sexy. But this is a hanger. I love these. As you most likely remember, I had one in my previous video. This is a slightly different kind of hanger. This one has this almost yataghan style hilt. And I don't actually know how these would be described. They almost all seem to be French, but yeah, not sure. If you know what this hilt is called, give me a shout. I know me and other dealers call this an Eastern style hilt, due to its similar looks to Eastern blades. The blade on this, however, is lovely. Scabbard, bit of an odd thing. Silver mounts, I'm guessing they will come up near sterling, and they've been put on a metal scabbard, which very odd, but not unheard of. It's most likely a replacement for an earlier leather one. I can do another video on a silver mounted hanger with a leather scabbard another day. The scabbard can go away. So these hangers, oh, I do love them. They are incredibly detailed. The hilt materials tend to be organic and metal. This one is ivory and silver, and it is, luckily, it should be, well, I imagine it is of a low enough content to be able to move on relatively easily, but it is just such a highly well-made object that it will be fine. The guard is silver, worked on both sides, unlike the one from last week, which only had workings on the outside, and this has talismanic engravings all the way down to halfway. Then on this side it has a Turk's head and other standard engravings of the period, which again I would say they're most likely talismanic. A lot of them refer to star signs and other similar things, and then there is a form of arms in the shape of spears, a javelin, a bow and a shield. And also this has quite a fun little chain guard. Obviously absolutely useless. They defend nothing, they just look good, and I don't know, it might help you get your hand in the hilt quickly. But it's just, it feels good. This is an incredible weapon. It has actually been service sharpened, or sharpened, as this isn't a service weapon. But the blade is near perfect. The engravings are stunning. And it has one of my favourite features, a clip point. These are vicious little things. And this is, I did say the one that I put in my last video was my new favourite. This is my new favourite. It came from the same person. And if you're in the antique sword community, you will all know it is Paul. And he is an incredible supplier of incredible arms. And yeah, he's one of the people who I grab from. And yeah, I don't even want to put this down, it's so nice. But I will. Then on to something a little bit more plain and a bit more unusual. Here is an 18th century French or French style sword that has been cut down into a cutlass. This is quite a fun little thing. Swords were quite regularly cut down for naval use. The Scandinavians were doing it in the 17th century. The British were doing it for the merchant marines in the 18th and 19th. And this one just has that hefty guard, which it is just an amazingly beefy piece, like the early French swords all were. And I will have a lot of fun figuring out what this used to be before it was cut down. And obviously, cut down for naval use, that is a bit of educated guesswork. It is just cutlass length or hanger length, and it's been done very well. It has a tip, it's fuller ends before the tip, and yeah, it does make quite a decent cutlass. The amount of protection off it is very similar to the French 1833 and similar cutlasses. For Independence Day, also the US 1850 cutlass. Here is another one. You all know I love Mamalukes. If you follow my Instagram and Facebook page, you see I rave about these hilts. I absolutely love them. This is the epitome of a good sword to me. It has freedom in the hand, it has this nice little hook that just grips and you just it wants to move. This one is a pipeback with a nice false edge, or if we're using American terminology, and I will today, and also because I love this word, a swedge, which is something you find on Modern Knives. This one is a roughly 1820s, 1830s British Mamaluke, possibly infantry, but most likely cavalry, for reasons I will explain in a second. The guard is iron, and that can indicate it is a combat sword, but of course all swords can be used for combat. This has the remains of etchings on it, not engravings, and I would guess this predates Queen Victoria's reign by maybe 10 years. The hilt, however, is why I purchased this. It has this carving on it. This carving with the palm splay and the knurling here, and also the band here, which hopefully you can see. I will be posting a picture of this on my Instagram tonight, or tomorrow by the time this comes out. This is the regimental etch of the 15th Hussars, which, if you also follow my Instagram, you will know I am descended from a member of the 15th Hussars who, prior to becoming a cavalry officer, was at Waterloo as a armed civilian. And so I have a very sentimental attachment to 15th Hussars weapons, but I have... That is too dangerous to get down right now. On my wall I have the sword I replaced this with. So this one, I have already sold this, but it came back to me in a trade. So this amazing Mamaluke, it's a little, the guard is a touch loose, but that can be shored up with a shim, or a leather washer, or a bit of a leather washer could fix that. This will be going up for sale again, and oh, it is just lovely. And yeah, it'll be going up for the same price as it was last time. Two more. So here is something I wasn't intending on getting, but I just couldn't say no, and you can see why. I am a Londoner, but I spent a lot of my time living in Portsmouth. I have lots of good memories in Portsmouth. I got into antiques and antique swords in Portsmouth. And I also lived in the same building as Matthews, the retailer of Portsmouth, Dudley of Portsmouth, and one other, Emmanuel of Portsmouth, just because Portsmouth is a tiny city, and if you live in a small apartment, you most likely have lived next to a sword retailer. So this is a circa 1800 lion's head saber, and it is quite a hefty one. It has been engraved with the fouled anchor. The engravings are a touch crude, but they are both equally... Yeah, they are both done exactly the same. So it has been done with a pattern, so it may be an addition. So perhaps this was later a merchant marine sword. But this 1796 style stirrup hilt, if it were infantry, I would call it a flank officer's sword. But I do believe, since this came out of a collection in and around Portsmouth, which is one of the reasons I just couldn't say no, it is a naval officer's fighting sword, or naval midshipman or warrant officer. It does have a black grip. There is, most of this is wood, but there is quite a lot of leather remaining, and it is black, so that could be a midshipman sword or a master at arms. Master at arms obviously were the people in charge of teaching British sailors to fight. The sword has a double fuller. Little bit of age showing, but not too bad. But the clipped point, that is a thing of beauty. And I am a huge fan of clipped points. As you can see with my earlier hanger, that is a good British fighting sword. And the naval connection, and the lion's head as well. Things like this just speak to me. And if I see one, I will acquire it, and then I will let you acquire it. And lastly, that was my box closing. Lastly is a hanger. So most of my hangers are 18th century, and you recognise the patterns. There are, such as this, the hilts that are often referred to as French. The blades are quite often German, and English ones are engraved in the same way as English military swords, and they are quite often called officer sidearms and naval sidearms. This one, however, is slightly earlier. Rather than being a mid to late 18th, this is early 18th century and possibly late 17th. I have seen a few museums and a few antiques dealers who have had a lot of experience name these as 1680. Well, 1680s and the latest 1740s. This one I need to do more research into because I can't definitively tell you when it was made. I would say it is towards the earlier end of that, but I'm not sure if it's 17th century. This hanger, though, is just, oh, it wants to move, much like the Mamalukes, as it just wants to move. It is quite long for a hanger. The blade is very slender and pretty much the same width, well, breadth, the whole way along. I believe it has a pattern welded or a twisted blade. There is a pattern down the bottom, which is quite interesting. It has moon engravings on both sides. These marks or stamps, they are associated with southern Germany, northern Italy, Genoa, but also it's a mark. It can be copied, it can be used by anyone to enhance the prestige of the sword. I believe these ones, due to the amount of detail and the fact that they're not in the same place, that is artlessly wonderful. The blade feels good, the blade is in nearly perfect condition. There are a few little patches where people have touched it and not cleaned it. I do touch my blades in my videos. I do clean all of them afterwards, don't worry. Each of these will get a good wiping and then an oiling. And what I love about this sword is the hilt. The upturned clamshell is just stunning. Hopefully that has focused. And also the hilt. The hilt hasn't been turned, but it has been carved. It has 8 faces. So I have had a few like this before. Quite often this style hilt is associated with Austria, Hungary, the eastern side of Germany, but there are no definitive markings as on the hilt, so couldn't be sure. It is just incredibly well carved. The terminals are there and the pommel are ridiculously nice. So that deserves some further study, but that, I think, it's not my favourite of this unboxing. The ivory-hilted hanger with the talismanic blade, that is my favourite. And in fact, I will show you comparison. Again, it is a nice slender blade versus a chunky one. Yet this one feels more hefty. This one has no fuller and not much taper until the end. This one is gently hollow ground and has a back edge and a sharpened front edge. So that is my new favourite. This, however, is my most interesting. I've never had one of these before. And yeah, after I do some research, I may do a touch of cleaning on it. No restoration, just some little bit of oiling. Get some of the dirt off because this is a little bit filthy. This will be for sale, along with most of the items here. And that is my unboxing. And I did say that this was going to be my new keeper hanger. But rather than that, I do believe I'm most likely going to keep the talismanic one for a while. So this will be up for sale. Or I might put them both up for sale and whatever one sells last, or whatever one doesn't sell first, I will keep. Because I can't decide and can't keep everything. Like I said in my interview with Fran for Sword Women and Buy the Sword, one of the hardest parts of working as an antique dealer, can't keep all the swords you get. You have to buy what you like, because otherwise you can't sell it, or you can't appreciate it enough to research it. But my word, is it hard letting some of these go. Okay, well, this is my second unboxing. I hope you liked. Didn't really unbox anything, it was just in a case. You're never going to get me ripping up cardboard on video, but I hope you enjoyed. And this was a nice little selection of 18th and 19th century and possibly 17th century swords. And yeah, it was a fun day at Kempton. Got to see some good people, and it's a fun little community. And yeah, got some swords, enjoyed it. It was way too warm, but on a day when you have new swords, nothing to complain about. So, give me a shout if you want to have any more details about these before they go up on my website. A big update coming soon, because I have finally completed my move. Once again, there will be no editing in this video because I do not like doing that. I may add introductions again, because I know I started doing that but I forgot. Enjoy, and catch you soon, sword fans.